Hello again, everyone. This is Christoforou with the Duran, and I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. And today we're going to be talking about the U.S. Embassy opening in Jerusalem and conflict and chaos on the Gaza Strip. Alexander, welcome again. Today we're going to talk about really what's unfolding in Gaza, and it's very much connected to the U.S. Embassy opening in Jerusalem. This was a historic event that took place. Many presidents before Trump promised in succession that they would move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Trump actually went ahead and did it. And this really coincided with a protest that has been bubbling up on the Gaza Strip over the past couple of weeks. And it really culminated just the other day in a very brutal confrontation between protesters. According to the Palestinian Authority, according to the Israeli authorities, they were Hamas, and of course Israeli soldiers. The latest tallies, Alexander, was from, and this is from, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, over 60 dead, and over 2,200 people were injured on the Palestinian side. Alexander, can you provide some clarity, number one, as to how the Jerusalem embassy opening is connected to this protest? Yeah. And number two, I would like your views as to, and this is a tough one, who's in the right and who's in the wrong with what happened during that clash between Israeli soldiers and Palestinian protesters, or, and I preface this, or Hamas members, because we got two sides to this story.
Right, well, the Jerusalem thing, I'm afraid one has to accept that this is a complicated story. Jerusalem is not just the capital of Israel, which practice it is. That is where the Israeli government is based. It is also a religious center. It is the center of three religions. Christianity, Judaism, and also Islam has a major presence there. It is also the capital of Palestine, of the Palestinian people. They see it as their capital also. And it has always been understood, ever since the start of this conflict between the Palestinian Arabs and the Israelis, that the most complicated, difficult, intractable issue was Jerusalem. Because the Israelis see Jerusalem as the undivided capital of Israel, which is the Jewish state that has been created on what was once the former Palestinian-populated British Mandate of Palestine. The Palestinians see this city, Jerusalem, as their capital, which has been taken from them. They see the recognition by the United States of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, which is what the transfer of the embassy effectively means, as a sign that the United States has now decisively come down on Israel's side on this question. And it also means that the Palestinians, that their aspiration to get Jerusalem back, and through Jerusalem, some kind of Palestinian state, which they can call their own, they now feel that has been taken away from them, possibly forever. So that is the source of the anger. That is the source of the tension that we're now seeing in Israel and Palestine and Gaza. Gaza, of course, being a part of the former British Mandate of Palestine, populated by Palestinian people who still aspire to this idea of Palestinian statehood. And of course, there is the religious dimension. For Jews, Israel is the ancient historic land of the Jewish people. Jerusalem is the ancient capital of the Jewish people. That is where the Jewish temple was. But also for Palestinians, it is where the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven. And it is for them an enormously religious site. And the idea that the Israelis are now in full control of it, which is what this embassy transfer means, that, of course, puts that in jeopardy. So I'm afraid it's a complicated thing. I've had to cover a lot of ground in a short time. I hope I've explained it clearly. but it cannot be underestimated how volatile and dangerous this is. Now, who is in the right about this? The first thing to say is that any step like this, like transferring the US embassy to Jerusalem, is going to is almost guaranteed to create a massive protest amongst Palestinians. There is no doubt at all that there are people within the Palestinian community, and you mentioned Hamas, and Hamas is a strong Muslim fundamentalist organization which is engaged in suicide bombing, an activity which most of us, I certainly would define as terrorist activity, is a powerful force in Gaza. It is in fact the ruling party there. At the same time, Israel is the authority. It is the country which has the power. One would have expected them to have some degree of preparation for the kind of protests that took place, and to have known how to handle these protests in a way that would not have resulted in this extraordinary bloodletting that we have seen. So, whilst one cannot say that there is no blame on any side, given that Israel should have been prepared for this, one can't ultimately deny that Israel, as the authority, has to take the greater part of the blame, by far the greater part. I've expressed it in a measured way. I hope I have expressed it in an accurate one, and one which people will understand.
Alexander, has the Palestinians' desire for their own state, do you believe that Trump has just put the final nail in the coffin for those aspirations?
I cannot see how a separate Palestinian state is now a viable proposition. I say that as somebody who has supported for many years that outcome, but with Jerusalem effectively lost, with the West Bank, which is the former Palestinian territory that was, still previously had some kind of autonomy from Israel, with that now crisscrossed by Jewish settlements, which are not going to go away, and with Gaza essentially under siege, I just don't think that is a viable proposition anymore. And I think that any future diplomacy that tries to resolve this conflict now has to address that fact and accept it. And in some ways, Donald Trump doing what he has done has at least provided clarity for that point. And that may be something that we can actually work with and build on in future.
A lot of people focus on Trump's part in this decision to move the embassy to Jerusalem. But I want to focus on what I believe is the other person that has had quite a good couple of weeks for him personally, and who's, I think, the other side of the coin as far as not only the U.S. moving its embassy to Jerusalem, but also what happened in our previous video when we talked about the Iran nuclear deal. And I think that's Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, it seems to me that he's gotten what he wanted in both instances. How much influence do you believe Netanyahu really has over Trump? It seems to be quite a lot. And what is Netanyahu's end game here?
I think the answer to your first question, is he has enormous influence. Clearly he does. He is certainly one of the people that Donald Trump listens to, and who's managed to persuade him, going back to our previous video, that Iran is this great existential threat. I don't believe it is, but Netanyahu has convinced him that it is, and who's also managed to persuade Donald Trump to see the Palestinian-Israeli conflict through the perspective that Netanyahu has, and who has persuaded him to transfer the embassy, the US embassy, to Jerusalem. So yes, I think Netanyahu in the short term has managed to achieve all his objectives. What long-term plan he has, I don't know. I'm not sure he has any, actually. He seems to me to be a brilliant tactician, a superb master of the short and immediate term. But what sort of end game he has, I am not really sure. And I wonder whether he would be able to answer that question if he himself asked himself that question. I don't really think he has an end game. I haven't seen it. I think perhaps what he hopes is that by achieving all these advantages now, he will stack up for Israel such an overwhelming position of strength that he won't need an end game. But I'm afraid in his region, in the Arab world and in the Middle East, I don't think that really works. And I think in time, we will start to see the balance starting to tilt in a way that will require some thought about some kind of solution to this problem, which takes into account Palestinian aspirations. But I doubt that Netanyahu is the man who will provide it.
What recourse do the Palestinians have, or the Palestinian Authority have, at this moment in time, and this moment in time going forward, to counteract not only what Netanyahu has achieved, but what appears to be the United States is pushing back against the Palestinians' his aspirations? And I say this in light to what Erdogan did a couple of days ago in Turkey, where he did summon the U.S. ambassador. Does the Palestinian Authority have allies that they can count on that will be able to support them, or maybe even nudge the United States and Israel just a little bit to further their position? Or do you think Erdogan's action was purely symbolic, and that the Palestinians are really alone in this conflict going forward?
I think Erdogan's actions at the moment are largely symbolic. I think they are partly a response to the concerns of his own base in Turkey, which is a Muslim base. And we were talking about Hamas. Erdogan runs a party, leads a party in Turkey, which is an Islamist party, which has similar ideological ideas in many ways to Hamas. So one mustn't discount that. But I don't think he's going to actually do anything practically to help the Palestinians, and I don't think anybody is. And I think that has to be the reality at the moment. I don't think the Palestinians have ever been in their history more alone or in a weaker position. But they do have one abiding strength, and that is that they are there. The very fact that they are there, that they are continuing to resist, and that their population in Palestine is in fact increasing, over time will start to give the very real grievances they have, which, let me say, are legitimate grievances, increasing traction. And the other great advantage that they have, which is the one that we spoke about before, is the position of Jerusalem. The fact that Jerusalem is so important to the Islamic world, and that the Palestinians are the people, the Islamic people, the Arab people in Jerusalem, who are in some ways the guardians of its Islamic heritage, that will, I think, over time, give them certain influence around the Arab world. But we have to be realistic about this. I'm sorry to say this is a brutal reality. The fact that 60 Palestinians were killed the other day in Gaza, the fact that thousands of them were injured, the fact that hundreds of them are arrested, in practical terms, in immediate diplomatic and political terms, it is not making any difference at all. It is not going to change Trump's position. It is not going to change public opinion in the United States. The Europeans may wring their hands, but they will do nothing. The Russians and the Chinese have their own game to play, and the Arab states are divided, and some of them are friendly to Israel. So we mustn't assume or think that the Palestinians have more cards to play at the moment than they actually do.
And on that note, I guess we're looking at the Palestinians playing a long game, and we're looking at Netanyahu, the master of the short and medium game. Alexander Mercouris, once again, thank you for breaking down what is a very complicated situation that is unfolding in Gaza and in Jerusalem. For everyone watching this episode of our weekly news roundup, remember to subscribe down below by clicking that red button. Click the notification bell as well so you can get updates as to when we push out new videos and new news updates. And don't forget to visit drnshop.com. Buy yourself a shirt, buy yourself a retro poster. We have a lot of great merchandise and you help support the Duran. Take care, guys, and tune in because we're going to be pushing out a video. We're going to be talking about a very, very new breaking story, and that has to do with Russiagate and Russian oligarch Oleg Deripaska. For now, take care.